Well, gosh diddly darn whippity doo dong thing, it is Halloween time again, baby, and I have decided to dress up as the scariest thing I could think of. A face in complete darkness illuminated by a single flashlight. One of the most terrifying things anybody could experience is death. It's always looming over us, and it's been a nuisance since the world started 2,000 years ago. But God, humans are narcissists. Guys, not only humans can die, other things can die, you see, like of laughter, plants, and most importantly for us, video game franchises. For every gaming cultural phenomenon, you have a franchise that never really caught on. And of course, failure has been a thing in the video game industry since it began, but to really feel that Halloween spirit, I want to discuss some of the most notorious gaming franchises that have been dormant and are likely to not really ever return. So buckle those seatbelts, turn on those airbags, check those mirrors, take off your seatbelt and leave your car. If you're driving, you should be focused on the road, because I am going to be talking about the most popular discontinued game series. I still refuse to talk about Luigi's Mansion for Halloween. I think I'd rather give birth. Cancelled game series. The thing literally every series strives not to become. Imagine you play a great series of games only for the company who made them to stop producing new ones altogether. That sucks. Just like how Netflix had to cancel Hoops. This can happen for a multitude of reasons, like lack of sales being a large one, the absence of new and fun ideas by the developers, or heck, maybe just the team that made them was shut down. No matter the reason, I'd like to talk about some of these series that specifically got discontinued. Starting with the band, the coot, the legend. I mean, come on. Crash Bandicoot was one of the PlayStation's main icons in the 90s. The game was a commercial success and lies at number 11 on the PS1's best-selling games list with 6.8 million copies. That is not an easy feat. The PS1 had such a large variety of software on it that a lot of players didn't even own the same games for it. In simpler terms, Crash was a big thing. So much so that Crash Bandicoot ended up getting 2 sequels, each developed in just a year. There were more mainline games throughout the years after Crash 3, but okay. Even counting spin-offs, from 2010 to 2017, no new Crash games came out. That is, until the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy was released, remaking the first 3 Crash games for modern platforms. Due to the game's success, Activision, who now had Crash's rights due to the original company Universal Interactive merging with them, greenlit a Crash 4, releasing in 2020 to pretty good reviews. However, the sales, which reached over 5 million copies, apparently didn't do well enough for Activision, so they decided to cancel the Crash 5 game that was currently in development and put their focus on developing more live service games. Tell me, how'd they choose World of Warcraft over this? Now, this doesn't technically mean Crash is done forever, but as it's been several years already since Crash 4 released with no sequel in sight, it's safe to say Crash Bandicoot is dead, at least for a while. Okay, well that was a very straightforward example of a company not being happy with a specific series' sales numbers. Now that doesn't mean any of the other franchises that I'm going to cover weren't discontinued because of the same reason as well, but I do want to exemplify all the different reasons that game series were discontinued, which brings me to my next example, F-Zero. Practically every Tuesday you hear of people saying, wow, I really want a new F-Zero game. It's a bit odd, as F-Zero is definitely on the more obscure side of Nintendo's history, but still consistently gets mentioned. It did pretty good on the Super Nintendo, selling almost 3 million copies, and if I'm being honest, showcased the new power of the console more than Super Mario World did. After a few games on the N64 and GBA that you never hear anybody talk about, the series came to its last stand with F-Zero GX in 2003 on the GameCube. I swear, this is the F-Zero game I hear about the most because it was the last one. There were a few more smaller titles throughout the rest of the 2000s like GP Legend and F-Zero Climax, but no other real mainline F-Zero games. The reason behind the discontinuation of F-Zero was just because the developers couldn't really come up with any new ideas. So it didn't really get through the GameCube generation and into the Wii, but really, if you had to play an F-Zero game with this, I don't think society would prevail. Oh, no, society's fine, but that Wiimote killed my dog! Even after hearing that F-Zero is a directionless franchise by the F-Zero developers themselves, people are still clamoring for a new game. You guys are still desperate for attention, you know that? Whatever, I won't complain about this any further. I was gonna do that, but then I realized that my hypocrisy levels are off the charts. Next up, I'd like to bring up Mega Man. The series isn't truly dead, but like, dude, from 1987 to 1996, there was at least one Mega Man game almost every year. It ended up going to Mega Man 8, but then the series stayed dormant for a while. Instead, the developers focused on evolving the series with things like Mega Man X and Zero. It wasn't until 2008 and 2010 respectively that Mega Man 9 and 10 released on the 7th generation consoles, which was around the start of when everyone was falling in love with classic era games again. This is basically how it went. Okay, well, this may be one of the greatest video games of all time. This one's kinda cute. So, Capcom decided to play with that nostalgia, but I feel like these were a bit uninspired. This focused on sticking to the past and being very similar style-wise to the first 8 Mega Man games, but those worked well because they were yearly releases. Listen, Evolution is good, but for people who just liked Mega Man, it was more Mega Man each year. That was great, but not expanding on much does not work when your main series took a 12-year-long hiatus, you know? Mega Man 10 ended up being the same old again, so the lack of much excitement surrounding the series led to Capcom not doing much with it at all for most of the 2010s. This is such a shame. I mean, Mega Man, just like Crash Bandicoot, is, or was, one of the most iconic characters in gaming, but Capcom fumbled the catch. Ask any kid now who Mega Man is, and they'll likely either recognize him from Super Smash Bros. Or
Yo, is that the guy from J-Eazy?
Okay, I will give Capcom credit. They retested the waters with Mega Man in 2018 with Mega Man 11, and this is actually good. This actually evolves the series a little bit. I mean, at the very least, they changed the graphics. Though the game ended up with only about 850,000 copies sold at the end of 2018, so it kinda makes sense that Mega Man hasn't gotten much in life ever since then. Capcom would rather focus their efforts on games that will make them more money. But they could have made more money on Mega Man if they evolved the series.
Well, pretty scary so far, huh? Some of these series had some of the most popularity in gaming ever, but the developers just don't care anymore. It's definitely a shame, but at least Capcom's motives made sense. I just want to strangle Activision. But the scare factor is going to ramp up even more, because this next example was discontinued, not because it did poorly or there were no more creative motives. This series was discontinued, and the developers couldn't do anything about it.
Of course, I'm talking Banjo-Kazooie. People loved the first 2 games on the N64, and these were shining instances of Rare completely carrying the console. This is basically a compliment to Mario 64, and it's even better in quite a few ways. Most notably, the graphics. I mean, this looks pretty great for an N64 game. The original entry ended up selling over 3 million copies worldwide, and while the sequel didn't achieve those same highs, 1.4 million is still nothing to scoff at, especially for this console in specific. But when you really think about it, that means that only 4% of N64 owners back in the day owned Banjo-Tooie. That's a Halloween costume in and of itself. However, there's a reason we don't see any more Banjo games in the modern day. You see, in 2002, Microsoft bought out Rare in one of the most iconic gaming deals to ever be conceived. Thank God Nintendo was in their GameCube era at that point and figured out how to actually make games before all the world's population withered away between releases, because otherwise they would have relied on Rare, like how they did in the N64 era. Anyways, this deal did not kill all hope for Banjo. Rare did get the rights to the series, so they were able to make a third Banjo game in 2008, but this is widely considered to be, bad. However, while that may be partially due to the low sales, the main reason here is just because the Microsoft deal made everything more complicated. They likely just wanted Rare to focus more on things that will help out Xbox in a more commercialized manner than whatever that thing is.
So yeah, unfortunately Banjo-Kazooie was killed off because of something effectively outside of the company's control. Yeah, they could have turned down the offer from Microsoft, but it was worth $600 million. Do you want $600 million? Yeah, okay, this kinda sucks. So many series have gotten canceled, discontinued, whatever. And again, seeing this happen to some of the most popular gaming series of all time just goes to show that game companies suck. But hey, we all know that the true meaning of Halloween is to be so positive all the time. So I just want to say that there's hope for some of these series in the future.
If there's anything that erupts gaming communities more than fan service, then I think I'd have a heart attack. So many series have returned from long slumbers. I mean, most of the series I talked about had that happen to them, but the companies just didn't stick to the revival. Crash 4, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Mega Man 11, and while the fact that these series have already been revived and are still dead nowadays may decrease their chances of coming back from the grave, we've seen series prosper when they were brought back. I could name so many. Luigi's Mansion went dormant for 12 years from the first game to Dark Moon, and while Dark Moon was overall just okay, it led to the release of Luigi's Mansion 3 6 years later on Nintendo Switch, which was spectacular, one of the best games on the system. Tomb Raider kept getting stale throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, but with a revival in 2013, the series went back to its roots and revolutionized the formula. Donkey Kong Country Returns brought back the series, same thing with Metroid Dread. Mario's Missing was the first educational Mario game after the series decided to not make one ever. Sonic 06 tried.
Yeah, Sonic 06 was bad. Now that's Halloween. Ooh. Well, that was neat. I like going back to dead gaming franchises. Some of these I have barely played and would actually like to get more into. Despite my love for Mario 64, I've barely touched Banjo-Kazooie. F-Zero is fairly fun, and I literally bought the Mega Man Legacy Collection on my Nintendo Switch. But hey, retro gaming is getting more and more popular. Series are getting more and more chances to become popular again because gaming is becoming more mainstream as a whole. The Sonic franchise was revitalized by the Sonic movies, Smash Bros. And other crossovers allow for old series to regain their popularity. I mean, look at Kid Icarus, that never would have returned if it wasn't for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. But hey, all we can do is wait. And I get it, it can be tough if you're a massive fan of a series. I can relate to that. It seems that recently Nintendo has forgotten about the Mario series. This needs a revival, man! Oh, who am I kidding? Nintendo, please make a Mario's Missing 2.